Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff with Fluent American, and we are back to target your American English pronunciation. We're going to take a look at files that you send me. You will see at the top of the screen there is a link to a document that you can go to where you can upload your own files. There's instructions there if you're not sure how to do that. Okay. And basically, we're going to be looking at two different sentences, taking a look at some pretty common English expressions. The first one, really hit the nail on the head. And then our second one, good ideas are a dime a dozen, specifically the dime a dozen part. Okay. As we go through the pronunciation, we'll talk about pronunciation of vowel sounds. We'll talk about linking. We'll talk about reductions. We'll talk about stress, all of those good things. But of course, if you have a question, you can also post those in the chat box, and I'll be happy to get to it as soon as I can. If you're joining us for the first time to the channel, welcome. And if you've been with us for a long time, thanks for coming back. It's always great to see you. We have a hello from Emmanuel, which is great. And of course, if you want to say hello too, feel free to say something in the chat box. So I know you're live. I know you're here. Okay. But let's take a look at our first sentence. So again, this sentence really hit the nail on the head. Now, for this sentence, I think that the real things that are going to help this sound natural. Hello to Shout. Not familiar with you, Shout. Thanks for joining us today. See you subscribe. That's great. If you have some questions for us, be sure to let me know. And let me know, did you send in an audio file? It would be great to hear you. For this first sentence here, I think the things that are going to be especially key to getting this to sound natural are going to be the stresses. Okay, so hit the nail. You're probably going to put a heavy stress on nail, and you're also probably going to get a pretty heavy stress on head. So that's going to be something that we'll be paying attention to as we take a look at this sentence. Hello to Sophia checking in again, and hello to Shok as well. Sorry, I see your audio file. I think you're first up. So paying attention to stresses, I think, is going to be really key to getting this sounding natural. I would also say, so really hit the nail on the head. You could also, in theory, put a stress on really as well. Like you really hit the nail on the head. Like you could also put the stress there on really. But I think in a general situation, probably going to stress nail and probably stress head. Some vowel sounds that you want to be paying attention to. You want to watch out for that sound on head. Head. It's not had. It's head. Heads. Notice that when I'm saying head, my lips are a little straighter. Heh. Heh. And that also my tongue's taking up a lot of space. So I'm raising that back. I'm raising that middle. And I'm raising that front of my tongue. And that's how I'm getting that sound. And of course, another key concept is going to be placement. If you're not familiar with placements, definitely need to see a lot of our videos. But placement is all about where you're projecting from. And in American English, we are really projecting sounds from low in the throat. And we're also trying to open the throat to try to let through as much air as possible. Okay. English has some sounds that exist in your first language, but one of the reasons why they can sound American when an American's talking, or why they can sound accented if you're speaking a different language, is placement. For instance, like a long I sound, like an E sound, probably exists in your language, but instead of doing it like E, or something similar, which a lot of languages do, American English is doing it more down here. So it turns more into like and again, same sound, just different placement. Just allowing more air to come through. So for that, going back to head, you want to make sure when you're saying in head, you're getting that projecting from a low spot and it's really relaxed. Head. Notice too on head, that D sound does not need to be super strong. You can hold it. You could say head, or you can make a very light sound at the end. Head. Either of those are fine. A quick note that if you hold it, it's not the same thing as just removing it. You're not saying he, you're saying head. So when you hold a consonant, you want to do two things. You want to make sure that, firstly, you shorten your vowel. So compare like he versus head. He, head. I'm shortening the vowel. I'm not letting it go quite as long. Okay. I'm also not letting the air escape. So I'm tightening my throat at the very end so that way air can't come through. It's like on the head, or on the head, if you want to hold it more. So that's for head. Next up, nail. We'll be paying a lot of attention to that. Okay. Um, excited to hear some heavy bass. Let's do it. Always excited for some bass. And shout. Problem with this? Almost all sounds in my language. Yes. That's probably going to be the big thing. Placement's going to have a huge impact on that. If you feel like your language has a lot of the same sounds as English, then how do you get that American English sound? Getting it lower, more air. Those are my two big pieces of advice. Everyone knows it. You've been following along. Nails. You also want to watch out for this, for that A sound. A. What I see with a lot of students is they want to do like A, where it gets really tense at the end. You hear that A. That's way too high. You want to hear A. So keep it lower. I know it's a diphthong. I know there's some movement, but honestly, I think a lot of people are exaggerating it a bit too much with that difference between the and the I sound at the end. It's not A, it's just A. It may help you if you listen to your audio, especially if maybe like cut off like the last millisecond of your vowel sound, because there's a chance you may be going too long if you feel like you're not getting the same sound as me. Okay. Nay. Another key thing too, this A sound is considered this A sound is considered a long vowel, and that's going to have an impact when you have a long vowel that links with an L, because when a long vowel links with an L, it's going to break into two parts. So you're going to hear that A, and then you're going to hear this sound, kind of like in book, but with a dark L at the end. It's like So it's going to sound like nail. And you want to make sure too that when you're doing that sound at the end, that again, your placement is low and relaxed. So it's not nail, it's nail. I'm not sure if you can see my tongue, but the front of my tongue is actually down for that dark L sound. Nail. I want you to see that my tongue doesn't really even move the entire time when I'm saying nail. It's just my lower jaw. It's not really my tongue. So keeping your tongue low for that entire time. Nail. Other things here. Speaking of nail, I'm trying to nail the placement, but still just doesn't sound right when I play my recordings. And that's okay. That's great to notice. Noticing is always the first step. You can't pronounce the sound you can't hear. So if you're noticing that the sound is not quite right, I think that's great. I would say just continue practicing, until experiment. Try different things. We'll go through some exercises. So for instance, like an A sound, if you feel like your placement's high on nail, like for that A, you can try doing things like taking from a high placement and lowering it. It's like A. So again, I'm starting high on that E, and I'm lowering it like E. A. E. Or take another sound, for instance, like an ah sound probably exists in your language. You can take an ah sound from a high spot and lower it. It's like ah. And then again, all I'm doing is I'm just sending the sound down. Okay. Just different practice exercises like that. Exaggerate, and things like that. Experiments. Don't be afraid to make weird noises and weird mouth positions and things. That's part of the process. That's the joys and the pains of pronunciation. I see we have a question here.
Question.
The dark L in nail connects to the on sound, which just starts the vowel. Doesn't that turn to a regular L? The dark L in nail. Oh, nail on. I'll put it this way. So like, see if you can see my tongue when I'm saying nail. Nail on. Do you see my tongue's actually staying low? Nail on. Okay, so I'm not actually raising my tongue. Now you can, if you say nail on, that works as well. So what I would say is that it kind of depends. You'll hear both versions, in all honesty, even though you're having that dark L. I think that the reality is that, hey, like a lot of consonants that again, for instance, a lot of consonants that make contact with the top of your mouth. You think like N sounds or L sounds or like D sounds and things like that. In reality, they're not always made with the tip of your tongue going high. I was actually just talking about this with another student today, and I think I need to do a video on it. You can, there's nothing wrong if you raise that front of your tongue high. But the reality is that in rapid speech, you may not have time to, because if you're high and then trying to go low again, that takes, a millisecond, or it takes time. And it doesn't sound like much, but, if you're doing rapid speech, those milliseconds do make a difference in terms of how natural you sound. So, for instance, see if you can make an N sound with the front of your tongue down the entire time, like nah, nah, nah. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but again, the tip of my tongue is down here. I'm actually using the middle of my tongue to make contact. It's like nah, nah. Or again, like with an L sound, I can do the same thing, like la, la, la. The tip of my tongue is constantly pressed against my lower front tooth. Okay, it's not moving at all. And so just kind of experimenting with those things. Good question there. All right, going back to our original sentence here. Really. So we talked about nail, we talked about head. Hit, we should probably mention really quick. So for hit, you have the short I sound, like like sit, or like quiz. So again, hit. Make sure you're not saying heat. So it's not E, it's I. Sides of your tongue touching your top teeth. So it's almost like you're biting the sides of your tongue very gently. Again, no blood. We don't want blood. I don't want you going to the hospital because of me. Also, again, placement really low and relaxed. So again, it's not E, it's more so it's not heat, it's hit. Other things in this sentence, speaking of short I sounds, how about that word really? Tends to be a hard word to say, or it can be confusing. So really has a short I followed by a long I. So like I. I would, if you find this tricky to say, I would just practice that combination a little bit, like really, really, really. Okay. Also, linking short I's to L's tends to be a little bit complicated as well. So again, it's like ill. It's not eel. It's not ill. It's ill. Again, with the dark L sound for really. You really. So those are the major vowel sounds. We do have some reductions, of course. So for instance, you could say you really. There's nothing wrong with that, but you could also reduce that to ya, like you're really. Can you hear the difference between you really and you're really? Okay, so those are two things to watch out for. Other things like hit the nail. It's like hit the nail. How about that linking there? Hit the nail. You really hit the nail. So the very reduced. And then on the head. It's like notice that on the, you can also almost just make it like an N sound. It's like on the head. Nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. So those would be my suggestions for that sentence. But we'll listen and see how you guys said it. And once more, you can send your audio files just by clicking this link at the top. Going to this place, it'll have all the directions once you're there, so we can take a look at your files. Okay. Up next, we also say, "What up, Jess here? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us again. It's great to see you on the stream." Okay, send us an audio file. Speaking of audio files, I'm taking a look. We got one more from Serge, which is great. Cool. Let's take a look at our second sentence now. All right, so good ideas are a dime a dozen. I would imagine for this sentence, I would expect two stresses. Probably ideas, good ideas, and then dime a dozen, and then stress on dozen. So ideas, dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Okay. If you put the stress on dime, that's not the most natural place for the stress to occur in the phrase. Okay. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's probably less frequent to place the stress on dime. Just a note on that. Talk about some vowel sounds here. Dozen has that schwa sound. So in case where an O becomes a schwa, like duh, dozen. Make sure you're not saying dozen. It's not dozen, it's dozen. Okay. Then we have that I sound in dime. You want to make sure you're not saying die, you're saying die. So again, it's not I, it's more I. Again, lower in the throat, a little bit more relaxed. It's not daima, it's daima. Probably one of the more challenging words here is the word good. which is unfortunate because good is such a common, it's a really common word, right? If you're speaking English, it's a word that you definitely want to, feeling pretty comfortable with it. Um, it's like good ideas. So like with that sound here, notice how my mouth's a little bit open. Uh. What I tell students is that if you find this to be a difficult sound, one thing you can do is smile a little bit, be happy. Um, because what that is going to do is going to tense your lips a little bit. It's going to prevent you from rounding your lips. So it's not goo, it's g, g. It's like smile and open your mouth a little bit. G, g. And of course, placement low in the throat and relaxed. Back of your tongue is high and the front of your tongue is down. It's like g, good, good. Okay. So that's the sound you want to look for. So again, it's not good, it's more good. Good. Okay. Um, and let's see here. Good ideas are a dime. Ideas. Another quick thing here for ideas. This is a big thing, especially for my Mandarin speaking friends. If you're out there, idea, and that sound at the end needs to be really open, lots of air. Idea, idea. Sometimes I hear like idea or idea, but it's idea, ideas, and also that s at the end of ideas will be voiced because it's following a vowel sound. So it's going to have a slight z sound. So it's not ideas, it's ideas, ideas, good ideas. Also, another sound that can be tricky in this sentence too are the ara. So again, the r. And I was actually working with another student earlier too on r sounds today and making sure again your So it's not it's not it's I think people get confused with r's because the back of your tongue is high. Okay, so people are thinking you need to block air and they're really concentrating on that. And then they tend to make their throat really tense. And then you get like this type sound. Or maybe you're breathing too much, like but then the back of your tongue's not high enough. But the back of your tongue needs to be high, but your throat needs to be open. So it kind of sounds contradictory. High back of tongue to block some air there, but really open throat to let through as much air through your throat as possible. Okay, so you need air here, and then you're going to block it here. Okay, if you block it too soon, it's not going to be the right sound. It's like r. Another thing too is that the r it can take over a word very easily. So making sure that you're not letting it dominate. Okay, for instance, in this word r, hold that ah sound a little longer before it's like r. Okay, so good ideas are a dime a dozen. It's also it's not usually a stressed word, so you can usually do it pretty fast. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. I know that we have some questions. Let's take a question. Stress good. Is it common with this sentence? Can you stress good? Like good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. You could. If you want to really emphasize the good part, you certainly can. There's nothing wrong with that. You certainly can stress that. I think in a neutral situation, without any context, you're probably going to stress ideas. And we have another question. Beta, good to see you. What does this sentence mean? Is it sarcastic? Doesn't necessarily. I mean, it certainly can be sarcastic in the right context, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. If I'm hearing this sentence, it means that hey, like everyone, it's good ideas are really common. Everyone has great ideas. I think it kind of implies that there's more to it though. Like everyone has good ideas, but not many people have good plans, right? So everyone can have an idea of like, oh, this would be great. We should do this. But then it's like, okay, well, how do we do this? And that's the issue that a lot of people have. That's kind of the interpretation I would take from that sentence. All right. If you guys have other questions about anything about how to pronounce those two sentences or what I would do, feel free to send some audio. But those are just, again, what I would recommend in terms of pronunciation, in terms of stress, in terms of everything like that. But you guys, of course, did not come here just to hear me talk about everything. You guys came here to get some feedback. So I want to make sure that we take a look at what everyone has. And let's load everything up. Whoa, let me add myself there, right? Again, it's not little, it's more little.
The G host was class.
Are you feeling that here, or here? All right, so you're going to see me put on my headphones as I load up your audio files and things like that, so that way I can hear you. I'll also share my audio so you can hear me and everything I am hearing as well. Okay, and of course, if you want to get your own audio files, it's not too late. Again, just go to the top and you will be able to see the document where you can send them in. Be happy to take a look. Okay. Okay. Couple quick words, questions before we get to that. Doesn't has a schwa sound, or so it's not doesn't, it's doesn't. Schwa sound on that. Oh, doesn't. Okay. And another question here. How do we pronounce words? Ubiquitous and tremendous. Okay, so one thing that both these words have in common is that is sound at the end, so that short I sound. So it's not us. I know sometimes students are pronouncing it like that, like us. But it's going to be more is, like short I sound, a little bit reduced. And that first word again would also be ubiquitous. Lots of short I sounds. It's like ubiquitous. Also notice that T is going to become a fast D sound. So it's not tis. You typically become more this, ubiquitous. Okay. And then tremendous. Typically first syllable will be a schwa. It's like tr. Notice that those that TR sound too is going to make like a CHR type sound. It's like tra. So it's not tra, it's tra. It's like a CH and an R. Tremendous. And again, you get that sound at the end as well. So ubiquitous, tremendous. Both those words have about the same final sound. All right, let us share everything. Let me find my headphones really quick. Okay. And while I am
like what you're hearing, let us know by liking and subscribing.
All right, and in a moment, I'll be able to see and hear. Okay, let me bring myself in here. There I am. Okay. So let's take a look at your files. So again, if you're sending in your audio, this is what you're going to see. Okay, and you'll see the directions at the top. Everything you need to do there, and then you can add your name and add the link, and we'll take a look at it. I will note there were a couple people who sent me files today, and for various reasons, I wasn't able to use them. Okay, so if you sent me a file, but I'm not playing it, it's because maybe there was an issue with the audio, or the file didn't actually even load. Okay, so just a note about that. My apologies. All right, I'm going to try to work in the order that I received these. Okay. And let's listen to our first one here.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Such a dramatic pause there. You know I love my dramatic pauses.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Okay, you really hit. Put a lot of stress on really. Okay, so again, we're looking at, in case you're just joining us, we're analyzing your pronunciation of how you said a couple sentences. This is the first one. You really hit. Really hit. You put stress on really on hit.
You really hit.
You really hit. You really hit. You really hit. You really hit. I think you could have probably raised your pitch a little bit more on hit. Like I'm hearing you really hit.
You really hit.
You really hit. Like I feel like you want to stress hit, but the pitch is a little bit low. I probably would have raised the pitch a little bit. Like you really hit. You really hit. So something to consider. You could have raised that pitch a little bit higher on hit. I don't think it's necessarily wrong what you're doing, but I think in terms of like what this would actually sound like in a conversation, I don't think you're likely to say like you really hit. That sounds a little bit too flat versus like you really hit. You could also use a little bit more of a rising intonation on hit potentially as well.
You really hit.
Because you're like hit. But this is half the phrase, right? So there's more information coming after this. So again, one way that we typically indicate that is by using a rising intonation. Because right now your intonation, again, it sounds more falling. You really hit versus you really hit. You really hit. Just because that, again, implies that there's more information coming. So just kind of something to consider there.
He hit the nail on the head.
The nail on the head. I like the second half of this. I think this sounds pretty natural.
Hit the nail on the head.
You could have reduced the on the, like I'm hearing the nail on the head. Very kind of careful, clear. This is super clear. I would like your English to get a little bit messier. Add some reductions and linking and things like that a little bit more. It's like on the head. I would have liked to have heard that sped up more. Like on the head, nail on the head, nail on the head.
The nail on the head.
And also nail on the, like that could have even been like a little bit more as well. The nail on the head. I want to hear the placement on nail again.
The nail on the head. The nail on
Nail, 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 nail. I think on nail, your placement could have gone a little bit lower. You could have gotten just a little bit more air through. Especially it's a little hard to tell. Is it the A sound or is it the all?
the nail on the
Nail. I think it's the all. So like when you're doing that all sound, see if you can get this just a little bit lower and a little bit more open. All, nail, nail, all, nail. So is that nail or nail? Just slightly lower.
the nail on the head.
Yeah, those would probably be my big suggestions for that. I'll play it again. Again, the way I would say this is, you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Those would be my big suggestions there. Thank you as always for sending this. Can't do this without you, and I do appreciate it. Take a listen to your next file.
Good ideas are a dime in a dozen.
So I feel like I heard diamond in there. So this is our second sentence. I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to be paying special attention to words like good. And also the schwa sounds like ideas and dozen.
Good ideas are a dime in a dozen.
I feel like I'm hearing like dime in a dozen. Kind of hearing that.
Yes, are a dime in a dozen.
Dime in a, hear that dime in a, dime in a.
A dime in a dozen.
Instead of dime a dozen. I would just watch out for that link in there. Dime a dozen, dime a dozen, dime a dozen. Just watch out for that part.
Are a dime in a dozen.
Let's hear the schwa on dozen again.
Yes, are a dime in a dozen.
Dozen.
Yes, are a dime in a dozen.
I don't think it's bad. I think that you could go a little lower on dozen. So instead of dozen, more dozen. I think your register would allow for that, so I'll go a little lower personally and try to get just a little bit more air through. But I don't think it's bad. And we mentioned linking dime a dozen. How about the first part?
Good ideas.
Good eye.
Good idea.
I'm hearing goo versus guh. Hear a difference between goo and guh. Guh.
Good idea.
Good versus good. So I again try to get that a little bit lower. Probably open your mouth just a little wider as well, just to let more air through. I think would be helpful. It's like good.
Good ideas.
Ideas. That E sound in ideas. So doing that D, it sounded a little tense to me. Ideas versus ideas. Ideas. Trying to get that a little lower as well.
Good ideas.
So I'm hearing good ideas versus good ideas. And again, the difference is just airflow. I'm letting more air through. Again, a little lower. Okay.
Good ideas are a dime in a dozen.
A dime a dozen. Dime a dozen.
Dime in a dozen.
Dozen. Also, so dozen is probably going to be your heaviest stress. You know, it's your last major content word. It is stressed. And when that happens at the end of a thought group or at the end of a sentence, especially, it's going to tend to be emphasized even a little bit more. So I think you could have actually, to emphasize that more, I think you could have done a sharper fall. A dime a dozen. So you could have made that just a little bit sharper. Back to it more.
Dime in a dozen.
Dozen versus dozen. So do you hear the difference between dozen versus dozen? Some of that's with the schwa, but some of that's just having a sharper fall. So I think that those would be my big suggestions there for that ending part. Yeah, these I'm being kind of nitpicky. I think in general this sounds fine. You know, I don't have like major issues with anything here. I think it sounds clear. But if you're looking to get it sounding even more natural, those are things that I would consider. Marcos, thank you for sending that. I think one of your files is actually one of the ones I had trouble with. I don't know if someone overwrote one of the files that you sent. in the Google Doc or something, but did not sound like you at all. All right. Take a look at our next one here.
You really hit the nail on the head.
I think this is Manuel. He made a warning earlier about his bass. Bass.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
So you're kind of following this very regular pattern, right? And there's nothing wrong with patterns. I mean, there's certainly times in English where those occur as well. But what I would say is that how I say this, English in general does not like patterns with things that start sounding too regular, unless they're used for like rhetoric effect. It doesn't like when things become super predictable in terms of the patterns and things like that. It's like sometimes you'll see a stress fall at the beginning of a thought group, then the next thought group maybe will fall more towards the end of the thought group and things like that. So I think this is in a lot of ways sounding very regular.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Kind of falling into that pattern. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail on the head. So one way you could have done that, take off a stress. I would have taken off the stress on nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
See how that sentence would have sounded if you took the stress off a nail. You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. Versus you really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You hear that? So that's definitely going to be my biggest suggestion for this is I would remove one of the stresses. And this is something I see a lot with my students. There's nothing wrong when you're talking if you have more stresses. There's nothing wrong with that. What it does, though, just understand the effects it has. It makes your sentences choppier because you're never allowing a rhythm to develop because you're constantly disrupting it. So you're left with kind of these short rhythms.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Right? It's like these like 3-syllable chunks. Versus if you had let that second half go and cut off that middle stress. You really like hit the nail on the head. Like you're just giving it a lot more time to kind of breathe and run, which can work to your advantage to sounding a little bit more natural. So again, the way I would say this is you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
So those would be my big suggestions there. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about that, be sure to let me know. But thank you for sending your audio. I cannot do this without you. Moving right along to our next one.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, I think you asked earlier too about the stress on good. Can you put the stress on good? And you certainly can, but it obviously is going to change the flow.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas are.
How about that good? It's like I'm hearing good versus good.
Good idea.
Good ideas versus good ideas. I think two things get your placement a little bit lower and more open. So it's not good, it's more good. And also the second thing I would suggest is hold your vowel longer because you're kind of rushing from that G to that D sound. So like good versus good ideas. So it's almost like saying more like good and then good ideas in terms of the linking and how that's going to sound. It's like good ideas. I would recommend that.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Or a dime a dozen. I like that second half.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
A dime a dozen. A dime a dozen.
Ideas are a dime a dozen.
Your N sounds a little bit high, like versus I'll try to get that N a little bit lower and more open. So it's not dozen, it's dozen. So again, it's not dozen, it's dozen. Try and get that lower on that N.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, but that's probably my biggest suggestion, especially for that first half, for good. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Yeah, and you, just to go back to what you asked about stress, can you stress good? You certainly can in the right context. If you want to really emphasize like the good. Okay, like maybe you're criticizing someone who's like, is putting a lot of value on just ideas or something like that. And you're like, well, good ideas are a dime a dozen, but like we need an actual plan here. We need something that's going to work. Yeah. Thank you for sending that audio as well. I do appreciate it. You guys are so kind, sharing your voices with me. All right, let's see what our next audio file says. Actually, let's take a real quick break.
Like what you're hearing? Let us know by liking and subscribing.
So our next one here.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really,
You really hit the nail on the head.
this is our first sentence.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head. So you're putting your heavy stress. You're kind of front loading your sentence. You're putting the heavy stress kind of towards the beginning versus the end.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You're putting the stress on really. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Which you certainly can do. You really hit the nail on the head. But I do think that in general for this sentence, I think you're a little bit more likely to get that stress on head. Really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail on the head. Let's I'm kind of curious. I want to hear how native speakers pronounce this. I'm gonna take a detour for a moment and kind of just hear where are we hearing stress. And again, this is something that you can also do on your own if you're looking for more examples. Just go to Youglish. Let's kind of listen to. You can say this. Adding really hit the nail. We're gonna listen to some native speakers saying this as well.
You can follow to really hit the nail on the head. So
She put on head.
And Don, I think, really hit the nail on the head because...
Stressed on head.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there.
Stress on head.
Loved it. It really hit the nail on the head.
Stress on head.
Fulfill all of my desires for a fantasy book. But this one really hit the nail on the head. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of these are putting the stress on head. So that's something I would definitely recommend. I think you're going a little too heavy. It's okay to have some stress on really, but you still probably want to have a little bit more stress on head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head, because that's kind of what I'm hearing. You really hit the nail on the head versus you really hit the nail on the head. In terms of other things,
you really hit the nail on the head.
That's probably going to be honestly my biggest suggestion. I like a lot of the other things going on.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. So like, I think there's lots of linking here. I think it flows.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Like do you hear that part? Like again, not much separation between the you and the really. It kind of blends together, which is great. You really
hit the nail on the head.
Okay, on the head. Nail on the head. And then that linking like nail on the head. Nail on the head. So my biggest suggestion is to say just some stress on head there. I think it's going to be more common. But thank you so much for sending that audio. If you have any questions about that, be sure to let me know. I'd be happy to answer them. Next up.
You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
Okay, let's play it one more time.
You really hit the nail on the head.
On the head. On the head. On the head. On the head. So you kind of do like on the head. On the head. I would maybe consider a sharper falling intonation on the head. Head. Kind of falling more.
Nail on the head.
So on the head versus on the head. So again, I would maybe make that falling intonation just a little bit sharper.
Nail on the head.
Other thing I'm hearing.
You really hit the nail on the head.
How about nail? Do you hear that nail?
You really hit the nail on the
You hear nail versus nail. It could be the A sound.
Hit the nail on the
Nay, a little tense there. Nate versus nay. So again, Nate versus nay. So you can hear that again.
Hit the nail on the
It could also again be that dark L sound.
Hit the nail on the
nail versus nail. It could be that for the L, they're making some contact with the tip of the tongue and the top of the mouth, getting that all sound. When again, the goal is really more of an all sound.
Hit the nail on the.
Is it nail or nail? Oh yeah. The more I hear it, the more it sounds to me like we're not using a dark L. We're using kind of a more standard L. So I would say, hey, play around with those dark vowel sounds a little bit more. Get the front of your tongue down, hold it down more. And also try to, again, project from low in your throat, more air. Raise the back of your tongue a little higher. Okay. Oh. You're just looking for a sound to say. Just practice that oh sound. Do like oh, nail, 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 nail. Like just doing those sorts of repetitions and practice exercises. And then the first part.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really
hit the nail on the head.
I think I like the you really.
You really hit the nail.
You really. Yeah, I'm actually okay with that. For the you really. I think that sounds pretty good. Okay. And again, one last time. So again, I would say this as you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So those would be my suggestions there. If anything is not clear, be sure to let me know because I'll be happy to answer any questions. But again, thank you for sending that. All right. And again, stop sharing just for a moment because I need to take a quick water break. And of course, if you guys have other questions about anything we talked about, we can take a look at those. Question. How do you say button? Button. Can you flap the T? I would not recommend for button. I would not recommend using a fast D flap T sound. So it's not button. It's button. It's a held T. So when you have these T's that are followed by an N, you really are gonna only hear like a held T sound. It's not so often you're gonna hear a T. Not so often you hear a fast D sound or a flap T. So it's not button. It's button. Some similar words to that would be like cotton or like mountain, things like that. We have some videos that talk about those held T sounds that I definitely would recommend. But again, I would not recommend flapping the T. Okay. And again, if you're just joining us, we're taking a look at your pronunciation files. Again, at the very top of our live stream chat, you're going to see a link to a document where you can send in your pronunciation files. And there's still time for us to take a look at them. One thing is, though, that I do want to share is that we do this sort of feedback every single day in our pronunciation Telegram group, where basically every day I give a challenge and then you can send in your audio and we listen to it.
Eel, please. I think your O sounds are a little bit tense. I'm getting a lot of O. Take off the T on center.
So again, this is something that we have available as well. If you're enjoying this, you're finding this helpful, we can do this every single day of the week in the group. All right, let's go back and take a look at more of your files. And again, there is still time if you want to send in audio files for us to see and analyze. And put myself back. Is this the one we just listened to?
You really hit the nail on the head.
Yes, this one we just listened to. All right, next up, let's take a look.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas versus good ideas.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Okay. Appreciate it. I would say good ideas. So this is good ideas. I think you're is it also on good or is it just ideas?
Good ideas.
Good ideas. So that is true. I like what you're doing with good. You're reducing that vowel, so like good ideas, because you're stressing ideas. Okay, so that the good, doesn't have to be long. Do it really fast. Get in, get out, move on to your stressed word. So I like what you're doing with good. It's like good ideas. Like I think that's great. I do like that.
Good ideas are.
For ideas, you're getting tense towards the end of your sound. So you're getting ideas. It's a little hard for me to tell if it's getting tense on the sound. If it's like instead idea, you're doing idea, it's a idea versus idea. I'm wondering if you're going tense on that sound or
good ideas are.
Actually, it might be that Z. I think it might be the Z. I'm getting like the Z versus Z. So again, that Z sound at the end, you want to make sure is also low and relaxed. So ideas. So it's not ideas, it's ideas. So again, placement is not just for vowel sounds, for consonant sounds too. So try and get a little lower on ideas.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
I'd also say dozen.
A dozen.
It's a dozen. Do you hear that? Dozen.
A dozen.
Dozen versus dozen. I would say take a look at your schwa sounds. See if you can get those a little bit lower as well, because right now those are sounding a little tense, a little high. So it's not dozen, it's more dozen.
A dozen.
Okay. Even for dozen as well, for that N sound, your N sound could also probably be just a touch lower.
A dozen.
So dozen, it's dozen. Okay. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Okay. But I like the words you're stressing, and I like the reductions of things you're doing. I would just pay attention to all those things that we just mentioned. I think those will help. Okay. But thank you so much for sending that audio as well. I do appreciate it. Take a listen to our next one here. 1 second.
Really hit the nail on the head.
Ooh, really heavy, really stressing head there. Really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head.
Okay. Does sound a little bit distant in terms of the audio quality, but we'll do our best to give some suggestions here.
Really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail on the head.
In general, I like this.
Really hit the nail on.
I like that. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail.
Really hit the nail on.
You really hit the nail. So you're stressing really instead of hit, but that's fine. You know, if that's the part you want to emphasize, I'm okay with that. I think it's a natural place to put it.
Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. My biggest suggestion is just going to be head. I think it kind of came out of nowhere and punched me.
Really hit the nail on the head.
Like on the head. Like, ugh.
Really hit the nail on the head.
It's like on the head. The head. And you know, when you're talking about stressed words, one thing you want to kind of think about is stress is kind of like building a staircase, right? It needs to be, you know, if you're going up steps, you don't want one step to be here and then one step to be up here and then one step to be down here. Like you want it to be very regular and predictable. In times where you don't, like if instead of going from here to here, you go from like here to like up here, like as a listener, you're causing me to trip. I'm falling all over the words you're saying. Because it's a less predictable pattern. It's throwing me off. It can be effective, you know, for instance, if you're trying to exaggerate or tell a story and things like that, it certainly has its place. But in a normal situation and things like that, it can really be distracting. So I would just say, let's listen
on
to
the head.
It's like on the head, on the head. It would have been maybe a little bit more natural, like on the head, on the head, on the head, on the head. Instead on the head. On the head. I think that just would have been a more natural progression there. So again, compare. You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head.
But in general, yeah, I like a lot of what you're doing. Just take a look at that last part. See what you think. Hello to Hassan checking in. Great to see you, man. Send us some audio if you have a moment. There's still time. Take a listen to our next file. Thanks for sending the previous one.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
A little bit with the audio quality.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Or a dime a dozen.
Good ideas.
Let's do that. Good ideas. Good ideas.
Good ideas are
ideas. Maybe slightly exaggerate on the sound. Maybe the placement could be very slightly lower on the ideas. Ideas.
Good ideas are
good ideas. That's kind of what I'm hearing for good ideas. Good ideas could probably just be a little bit lower, a little bit more open. But second half though.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Ara.
Ideas are a dime.
Why are you raising the pitch on the R? Like good ideas, Ara. Good ideas, Ara.
Good ideas are a dime.
Ara dime. I would have considered lowering the pitch instead on R, especially because you've already raised it on ideas.
Good ideas are
good ideas are versus good ideas are good ideas are. I would play around with the pitches to see just how it sounds with like higher versus lower. I would see how it sounds to you with a lower pitch after ideas.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
So instead ara or ara. I would go on lower. Ara. Good ideas are good ideas are
good ideas are a dime a dozen.
And the last major thing I'm going to say here for dozen, I think you could get more of that schwa sound. So I feel like I'm kind of hearing dozen. Dozen versus dozen. Dozen. So again, dozen versus dozen. You want that second one with that schwa sound more dozen. So one more time on that. Good ideas or a dime a dozen. Good ideas or a dime a dozen.
Good ideas or a dime a dozen.
Those would be my big suggestions for you there. Zubaida, I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about that. It's not clear, but thank you for sending that. Appreciate it. Next file here. Just want to take a quick look to see. I see we got some more files too. Danny checking in. Danny, I just saw your file. Hello, hello, hello. Alex sent one as well. And Sophia sent one. Great. Okay, so I'll be taking a quick look at those in a moment. Let's wrap up with our first batch.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Very carefully said. Play again.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. I would have, I think one thing immediately for rhythm, I would have taken off one of these stresses. I don't think you need 3. I think 2 would have been fine. It would allow you to flow a little bit more.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Because right now you're at, you really pause, hit the nail, slight pause on the head, versus you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. So I'm okay with really, and I'm okay with head. I would take off the nail.
You really.
I think it would be good for you to also begin experimenting more with some reductions. So you is very strong. It's like you really. But again, you oftentimes is going to get reduced into like a yes sounds like, and say you really more. You really. You really
hit the nail on the
hit the nail.
You really hit the nail on the
nail. I think your dark L sound just very slightly for placement too could be just a little lower. Nail.
Really hit the nail on the head.
On the head. On the head.
Hit the nail on the head.
Hit the nail on the head. Nail on the head. So you're staying high again. I'm noticing so like nail on. It's like nail on. You're staying at these high pitches.
Hit the nail on the head.
Nail on versus nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. Hit the nail on the head. It's okay. I personally would have gone lower, but I won't argue with you if you keep it high for that as well. But again, I would say it says you really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So I hope that's helpful. And again, for that one, if you have any questions or things, just shoot me a message. Be happy to try to help. Okay. And let's take a listen to our last one from our first group.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Shot mix. No, I think I'm going to edit there. Yeah, put it at the very bottom, Shot. If you're adding a new file, just put it at the very bottom.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. Really. So you're putting a stress on hit. Hit the nail. You really hit the nail. Or you're also adding stress on really?
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail. Really hit the nail. What is...
You really hit the nail on the head.
On the head. The head. I think you're putting it... So the ending, I think you're putting some stress on as opposed to head. Like on the head versus on the head. So in general, prepositions do not receive stress. Unless you're talking about like phrasal verbs, things like that. But I would shift that stress from on onto head.
Hit the nail on the head.
Hit the nail on the head versus on the head. So watch out for that. This first part.
You really hit the nail on.
So you are putting a stress on hit. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. Hit the nail. You really hit the nail.
The head. You really hit the nail on.
You really hit the nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. Okay, so one thing, by the way, my dog is going crazy now, so you may hear him in the background. Sorry. But I think one thing is that so you have this falling intonation on nail. You really hit the nail.
You really hit the nail on.
And again, falling intonation is telling your listener that you're done. Your sentence is over. It's time to move on. Okay. So one thing that could have helped right here was having more of a rising intonation. You really hit the nail. You know, even doing like a fall rise, like nail. You really hit the nail. Something like that. But some sort of rise at the end of that, especially on that dark L sound. It's like all. You want probably more of a rise there to let your listener know you're not done. Okay. Really, how would that sound for this first part?
You really hit the nail.
You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. I also think that really some of this could also be too that you're also adding a decent amount of stress onto really, and if you're adding that stress onto really, that's going to make your listener think that that's probably going to be the word you're stressing. But then you go even a step further on hit. So I would say maybe not make both of those words stress, but kind of picking one and reducing the other. So like you really hit, or like you really hit. So I would probably suggest one of those patterns would be a little bit more common, I think. And earlier in the stream, we looked at some native speakers saying the same sentence. So I'd use those as your model, in addition to mine, to kind of get an idea of what would sound a little bit more natural. Because I don't think the pattern that you use is going to be typical of how you're going to hear a lot of native speakers saying it. It's like you really hit the nail on the head, or you really hit the nail on the head. So again, that rising intonation at the end of nail and playing around with those stresses on really and hit. Those would be my big suggestions there. I hope that makes sense. If anything there is not clear, be sure to let me know. But thank you for sending your audio. I, as always, appreciate it. All right. I need to do some screening because I know some people have been sending me some new audio files. And I want to make sure we have time for yours. Let's see how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 6 more files to take a look at. As I am screening these.
Like what you're hearing? Let us know by liking and subscribing.
Okay, so let's take a look. Surge would be the first one I'm taking the screening at. And of course, this is a great time if you have a question to ask them. And again, if you're not sure what we're doing, we are looking at your pronunciation files, and you can send them at this document, which you can find at the very top of the chat box. Surge, okay. This one going to load. Cool, thank you, Sophia. Check out Danny's. Next one. Okay, Denny's, yours sounds good. Let's take a look at our next one. We got one. And the last one here. Okay, cool. These are sounding good. Let us share everything once more. And if you are still thinking about sending an audio file, but you haven't done it yet, you're running out of time. Okay, so make sure to try to get your audio files in, because I have to try to get these done within the next half hour before I go to my next class. All right, let's take a look again. No singer. At the moment, I am singerless. I will be honest. Karaoke is not open yet, apparently.
You really hit my nail on the head.
Play again.
You really hit my nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. Asking about pizza. Asking the real questions here. I mean, I'm not one to turn down a pizza. I actually I used to work at a pizza shop. It was an Italian one, don't worry. The owner was from Naples, although he didn't know how to speak Italian. He only know how to speak Napoletano, and he know how to speak Spanish because his wife was Mexican. But yeah, I know how to make some pizza. I can make some decent pizza, but I'm always down for more.
You really hit my nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit my nail on.
Really hit the nail. Kind of like what we mentioned earlier about pitches. I think your stress on hit is a little bit it's a little bit sudden. It's a little bit unexpected. You know, I wasn't prepared for it.
You really hit my nail on the.
You're like here. You really hit versus you really hit. You really hit. So I would just say on your pitches, you don't have to go quite so high on that. Oh, we got some hungry people here. Yeah, it's like lunchtime, guys. So some people are famished. It's not cool to be talking about pizza around lunchtime. Not everyone had lunch, Denny.
You really hit my nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. So, yeah, so I'll just say watch out for that what you call it, for that range. Just to not make your pitch changes too sudden.
You really hit my nail on the head.
Really hit the nail. Really hit the nail. You really hit. Really hit the nail on the head. Really hit the nail. Really hit the nail. I also think that you may be more likely to hear the stress on nail than you would on hit, because that's your last major content word. You could put on really. You really hit the nail. Or you could put it on head. Or you could put it on nail. So really or nail, but to put it on hit, it would be slightly less common. So I would say play around with your stresses more.
You really hit my nail on the head.
On the head. On the head. I would make the stress on head stand out more. I would raise the pitch on head more.
Nail on the head.
It's like on the head. You're kind of staying at the same level for everything. On the head versus on the head. On the head. So I would just raise that pitch there a little bit. And I think that'll make it sound more natural. So my big things there are going to be playing around with pitches and stresses a little bit, because I think that'll have the biggest impact on this sentence. Let me know if anything doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then he's eating his dinner. Buon appetito. Hope everyone is eating well if it's dinner time. Take a look at our next one.
You really.
Hassan's asking the real questions here. Tea or coffee? It's my last dregs of water. Denny was supposed to be. He's supposed to be my hydration guy. He's the one that's supposed to be reminding me to drink. Denny, I might have to hire someone else for your position, man.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really okay. So again, this is an example again of what it would sound like if you put the stress on really.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. I would say on nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You hit nail versus nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Per forza, sto per morire.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the
Again, nail. Your A sounds getting very nasal. Nay versus nay. Okay. Applications are definitely open. Unless then you can fight for it to get it back. Nail sounded really tense to me. Nail versus nay. I think nail on that part sounds good.
hit the nail on the head.
Nail. I would just get that A sound a little lower and more relaxed. Get the O sound a little lower and more relaxed. Nail. So it's not nail, more nail. Things like that. Okay.
Really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, but I think in general I like the rest of this.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. I'd also say that nail is kind of, I would probably, if you're going to put the stress on really, I don't think you need as much emphasis on nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
It's like you really hit the nail on the head. Versus you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. I don't think you need nail necessarily to be as strong. But regards to the larger thing to take a look at is nail and that placement a little bit, because it sounds a little tense to me. But in general, nice work. I like this. I think it sounds pretty good. Thank you for sending it. I do appreciate it. Take a listen to our next one here.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Okay, Danny.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really
hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. You could have reduced nail a bit. Kind of similar to the last one. I don't think nail needs to be so strong. No, Sophia, thank you for setting the audio. I appreciate that. You really
hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. Again, I would really recommend removing a stress because it's going to allow you to flow more. Because right now you're kind of falling.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. I would have maybe reduced nail a little bit more.
You really hit the nail on the head.
The nail on the head. On the head.
You really hit.
Really? I hear really again.
You really hit.
Really? You're kind of reducing the long I on really, and this is a super common thing. If for words that are ending on these Y's or these long I sounds, these E's, make sure you're not reducing them. You want to make sure that you're maintaining them. I see this with students from many different language backgrounds, reducing it. It's like really versus really, or like city versus city, things like that. Just make sure you're getting that long I sound at the end. Don't reduce it. So I would make that long I sound at the end of really a little stronger.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail. Really hit the nail. I think for this sentence, I would recommend reducing. I would take the stress off of really. I would just put it on nail.
You really hit the nail on the.
You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. See how that sounds for you, Denny. See if that flows naturally for you. Because I think it gives you more time to develop a rhythm. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail on the head.
The head.
And then I would go a little stronger on head with the stress.
The nail on the head.
Nail on the head. Nail on the head. I would have gone a heavier stress on head. Again, head, last major content word of your sentence. Okay, so it's probably gonna, if it's stress, it's probably gonna receive some of the more some of the heavier stress. So you could have made it stand out more. Get that falling intonation a little bit sharper instead of on the head, on the head. Be like on the head, on the head. I would have gone stronger there. Really hit the nail on the head. Yeah. So honestly, yeah, that's where I would have put. That's where I would put the stresses. And go heavier on head. And just practice saying that. See if you notice a difference. Record yourself, compare it to this one. So again, you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Also think for head, for that S sound. So it's not ha, it's more he. I think you could close your mouth a little bit more on that S sound and make your tongue bigger. Take up more space in your mouth. Raise the back, the middle, and the front. Head. Okay, really hit the nail on the head. But those would be my suggestions there. Thank you for sending that. I do appreciate it. And thank you for the kind words, Project. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's so sweet. You guys are here to make me cry. I told myself I wouldn't cry today, but here we are. Well, I would cry more, but I didn't drink enough water because someone didn't remind me to drink. All right, let's take a listen to our next one. Actually, but before we do,
like what you're hearing? Let us know by liking and subscribing.
Let's take a listen to this one.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head. Kind of similar comment here as to what I just gave for the last audio. I think head, I would have done a heavier falling intonation because again, it's your last word and you're stressing it. So you probably want to emphasize it just a little bit more.
Nail on the head.
So on the head or on the head, on the head. So it's not head, it's more head. I don't know if you can hear the difference. So it's not he, it's more he, a lot sharper. You want a steeper fall on the head just to make that stand out a little bit more on the head.
Nail on the head.
Because that's your last major stressed word and it's the end of your sentence.
You really hit the.
Really.
You really hit the.
Really, you really. I want to hear that really again.
You really hit the nail on.
Hit the nail. Nail. I think on nail again, you can go a little bit lower and a little bit more relaxed on the nail, nail again for that sound. Notice you can have that low placement, low and relaxed. It's not nail, it's nail. So if you're saying nail with the front of your tongue touching the top of your mouth on the nail. If you're making contact up here on that end, I would encourage you instead to try saying nail again with the front of your tongue down against the bottom of your mouth. Okay.
You really hit the nail on.
Because the nail sounds to me like I feel like I'm hearing contact with the front of the tongue and your top of your mouth.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Ciao Danny, buona serata, ok? Ci sentiamo.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, so my big suggestions there are going to be on nail and also on head with the falling intonation, making that a little bit sharper. Those would be my big suggestions for this one.
You really hit the nail on the head.
I also think that if you're willing to experiment with some reductions and things like that and trying to use them more in your speech, I think you have some opportunities to. So instead of saying like you really, you could do like you're really
hit
you really versus you really
the nail on.
Hit the
Really hit the nail.
The nail. You have some linking there and some reductions there. On hit the nail. Hit the. I like that.
On the head.
On the head. On the head versus on the head. On the head. You could reduce that on. It's just like on the head. On the head. It's just a note about that.
The nail on the head.
Okay. So again, those would be my suggestions there. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Thank you, Z. I appreciate you. I see 2 more files here, and looks like it's the last 2. Okay, so again, if you are just joining us, where you been? We missed you. We've been taking a look at pronunciation in American English. If you're curious and you want to get some pronunciation feedback for yourself, you're going to see at the top of the chat box a document where you can submit your audio files. In fact, you will. It's going to look like this document here. Okay, so you'll see a place where you can put your name, and then the website you can use is Vocaroo. That's this nice white and green site that you see a lot on our screen. You can send an audio file and then put the link into the documents. If you're a lurker, you just want to be in the background, not talking, but just kind of paying attention. That's cool. I'm glad you're here. But you can send in audio in the future when you're ready by following those same steps. We use this same document, by the way, every live stream. Okay, so if today's not a good day for whatever reason, but next week maybe we do this every Saturday, then save this link because we use the same one every time. Let's listen to our last 2 files here. Just note, my son and wife just came home, so you may hear some noises in the background.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Very flat.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
The only word that kind of like everything's here, right? Dime,
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Okay, so that's going to be my first thing, is that we need more variation. English wants contrast. English wants things that go up, things that go down, things that speed up really fast, things that go slower, things that have a high pitch, things that have a low pitch, things like that. So my biggest piece of advice for you is going to be add more variation, because right now you're kind of staying at the same, you're doing everything the same way for every word. So everything's blending together. So how could we do that?
Good ideas are.
So you're stressing good. Yes, you're saying
Good ideas are.
Good ideas are. And I know you're stressing good because it's your longest word. It's also the most forceful that you're doing. Since it's your stressed word, you could also raise the pitch though on it. It's like good ideas, good ideas, good ideas.
Dime a dozen. Good ideas are.
Since the good ideas are, good ideas are. So that's the first place where you can add some flavor.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Or a dime a dozen, or a dime a dozen. So you're putting stress on dime.
Is there a dime a dozen?
Or a dime a dozen. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Or a dime a dozen. In the expression, you're going to be much more likely here to stress on dozen, not on dime. It's a dime a dozen, or a dime a dozen, or a dime a dozen. You're more likely here to stress on dozen. So I would raise the pitch more on dozen, not on dime. Or a dime a dozen.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
So take off. You can keep dime flat, kind of like the rest of the sentence. Good ideas are, you hear that? Good ideas are dime a dozen. Dozen. That's the type of pattern you can use to just add correct stress or more standard stress while also making sure a sentence doesn't sound flat. And notice that, the majority of the sentence actually is relatively flat. Outside of good and outside of dozen, the rest of the sentence is kind of staying at this low level. You could go lower at some points. Like, for instance, you could say like good ideas. I personally would probably go lower on the ara. It's like good ideas are good ideas are a dime a dozen. So that's kind of the pattern that I would use. So I would go up on good. I would go down more on the ara. And then I would go back up slightly, dime a, and then I would go up higher and then fall, dozen. And I think that's one way you can make this sentence sound a little bit more dynamic, less flat. Okay, good ideas are a dime a dozen versus this.
Good ideas are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, but that's definitely my biggest suggestion is let's try to avoid English that sounds a little bit too flat. But thank you for sending that audio. I do appreciate it. All right, let's check one more time. Cool. I think this is going to be our last one for today. Okay, this is also an opportunity if you have questions or things. This is your last opportunity for this live stream. Of course, if you're watching this in the replay, thank you. It's great to see you, even though we're separated by time. But if you have a question about a future thing or things you'd like to see or you want to send your audio, again, you can leave a comment or again, check out our document. But this will be our last one for today.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Kind of similar suggestion that we've given before. I would say head, on the head. I would have done a sharper falling intonation there to make that stand out more. On the head. On the head. You really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Because right now heads just sound a little bit flat on the head. On the head.
You really hit the nail on the head.
On the head. If you want to keep it more monotone, okay. What you could also do is go lower. It's like on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. You want it just to make it stand out more, whether you're raising the pitch or you're going to make it go a little lower on the pitch. Something to make it stand out more. Because right now it's kind of getting lost, kind of blending into everything that surrounds it. Besides that,
you really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be my biggest suggestion. I like a lot of things you're doing. I like your vowel sounds.
You really hit the nail.
You really
hit the nail on the head.
You really hit the nail. You really hit the nail.
You really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot to say. I would just say on nail. On head. I would play around with the pitches there. In general, I think this sounds pretty good. Okay, but thank you for sending that audio. I hope that is helpful for you. All right, let's give you guys back your screen. Thank you guys for... Where's my mouse? Mouse is losing itself. Thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with me. Obviously, I can't do any of this without you guys. And we do this every Saturday. Okay, Saturday around this time. I'm starting at 1:30 p.m. New York time. And we go for usually about an hour, hour and a half. Sometimes 2 hours. Just take a look at your pronunciation for different sentences, giving you suggestions and feedback. If there are things that you would like to see in future live streams, sentences that you would like practice with, be sure to let me know. But yeah, I hope to see more of your audio files next week. Keep an eye out for tomorrow. Our next video is going to take a look at L and R sounds. It's another English workout video. So basically just about 8 to 10 minutes of just practicing L and R sounds in sentences, making sure that your placement is low and relaxed for them. So keep an eye out on the channel for when that comes out at some point tomorrow. Thank you again, as always, for your time. I will see you guys next week, I hope, or tomorrow in the video. Have a good day, have a good night, a good afternoon, and we will target your American English pronunciation next time. Take care.